When teams begin to confuse collaboration with communication, what happens is everybody begins to get invited to the meeting. So now your meetings not only multiply, but they also grow. A good meeting is around 25 minutes. So 25 to 45 minutes, that's where our meetings are going to be. Redesign how the team works outside that meeting. Because in the end, fewer meetings means more time outside to work. Identify the meetings that you really need to be on a call in a room for. Then I want you to take the meetings that you've dwindled down and make sure that they're meaningful. Look at the time, look at who's invited, and then last but not least, create that culture. Let me ask you a hard question. If I pulled your team's calendar right now, would I find a schedule packed with meetings that go nowhere? Be honest. Are people sitting in rooms or Zoom calls all day long only to do their actual work after hours? Meeting overload, it's not just annoying. It's a silent productivity killer. But here's the good news for you today. You don't need more time in the day. You just need a better way to lead your team's time. So today, I'm going to give you the cure for meeting overload so you can stop wasting those hours, reclaim your calendar, and give your team the freedom to actually get the results done. This is the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast, and I'm your host, John Espinosa, helping you hire and retain your top talent by building high-performance teams. Let's get into the first topic for today. First, I really wanted to dig into why meetings multiply, because we start out putting a meeting, maybe a weekly meeting on our calendar, and then that weekly meeting turns into maybe a bi-weekly meeting or vice versa. Maybe you got a bi-weekly meeting and it turns into a weekly meeting. I'm guilty of that. I'm talking to myself when I lay down these strategies, and I have to remember that meetings are productivity killers. So another reason why I think we add meetings is, and I talk to a lot of people that run businesses, and the reasons why they're having meetings is because people are confused. Like, there's just lack of clarity. And so they're like, we're going to call a meeting. And then that meeting turns into, that monthly meeting turns into that bi-weekly meeting. And then it goes into the actual weekly meeting because nobody knows what's going on. So everybody has to get together, have a meeting in order for everybody to clear everything out, right? So we can clear up all the expectations instead of setting the expectations in the first place. I know many of you are probably nodding your head because I've been there. My calendar was full of meetings. I was getting invited to meetings because people had access to my calendar and they just invite me to things. And half the time I'd walk into a meeting, no agenda, and we would spend a good part of the meeting just figuring out why we were meeting in the first place. That's just crazy. So what can we do? Because when teams begin to confuse collaboration with communication, what happens is everybody begins to get invited to the meeting. So now your meetings not only multiply, but they also grow. They start with like 2 or 3 people and they're like, you know what? I'm going to forward this invite. And before now, you got the whole entire organization. It's like an all hands. Everybody in your business is sitting in the same meeting and absolutely no work is getting done. So one application, because this is a practical podcast, I want you guys, again, to take away practical applications, not just fluff, not just philosophy. And one of the things we're going to help you do is we're going to provide show notes. So click on the link in the show note below, and you will be emailed a weekly show notes, practical applications. We're going to put it in all there for you because I know many of you are driving, many of you are working out. Many of you don't have a pen and, your journal. If you do, good for you. But one of the ways that we are going to prevent meetings from multiplying, not only in frequency, but in size of meetings, who the attendees are, we're going to audit. And I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. So when I was figuring out, how do I determine if a meeting needs to stay on my calendar? It has to have a purpose. What is the purpose of every single meeting? Doesn't matter when you have it or who it's with. What's the purpose? Question number 1. Question number 2, who really needs to be there? I find that around 7 people in a meeting, it starts to grow. It starts to get a little bit bigger. Discussion. Really, 7's that ultimate size. I wouldn't go above 10, but 7 I found is right about where you need to be as far as meeting size. And then number 3, I want you to cancel or shorten any meeting that doesn't have a purpose or is just gotten way too big. And instead of kicking people out of the meeting, just cancel the meeting. Cancel the meeting, figure out who needs to be there, and then put the meeting back on your calendar and figure out what frequency it needs to be. So that's the application. That is what is going to stop meetings from multiplying, not only in frequency, but also in size. So now, once you strip out all the meetings that you don't need, now what's left is the meetings that matter the most. Hey everyone, a quick break in the episode today. Are you struggling to find and keep the right employees? You're not alone. High turnover drains time, money, and morale, leaving us frustrated, overwhelmed, and feeling like we have to settle for less. I understand how tough hiring can be because I've lived it. And with over 21 years of building high-performance teams, I know how to turn hiring challenges into lasting employee success. Through my proven lead framework, we're going to analyze your processes, design a personalized strategy, and implement solutions that create confident and long-term results. Don't let turnover hold you back. Choosing this program is that first step towards a thriving workplace. Enroll today at thejohnespinosa.com and build the team you deserve. Imagine a team that works seamlessly together or keep facing the same costly cycle of turnover. The choice is yours. Now back to our episode. So this next topic we're going to talk about, I want to discuss how we're going to redesign meetings for impact. And when I say impact, I'm talking about fewer, faster, and focused. So in this topic, we're going to define outcomes. We are going to define outcome of a meeting before we click send or invite. And I want that outcome to be very clear. So I'm having this meeting because I need to make a decision. I need to get an update on a certain project. Whatever the outcome is, determine it before you click send. I want you to start to begin to cap your meetings at 45 minutes. I think that a good meeting is around 25 minutes. So 25 to 45 minutes, that's where our meetings are going to be. If you think about the default times on our calendars, whether you're using Google, whether you're using Microsoft, or whatever calendar system that you're using, it's around 60 minutes. You can actually go into your settings and set the default to 45 minutes, or even better yet, set it for 25 minutes. Whatever doesn't get done in that 25 to 45 minutes gets scheduled later. But what you will find, and you may go through a couple meetings where you still have some action items left over, but what you are going to see is the work that's getting done accomplished. If you got a great outcome, and if your meeting is short enough, people have a sense of urgency, and you're going to find your meetings become very productive. And then the other thing that I discussed earlier, make sure that you have not just the people that need to be in the meeting, but if you need to make a decision, are the decision makers in your meeting? Because if they're not, cancel the meeting. If I need a decision made and somebody is not there that the decision needs to come from, I just cancel the meeting and we reschedule it. It's not worth wasting everybody's time. And if you can wait on them, then wait on them. But for the most part, that's what setting expectations is too, is this meeting is not just fluff. I need you here. We need to make a decision. That's the outcome. And these are the people that I need in that meeting. So those are the three things when we talk about redesigning these meetings for impact. Remember, fewer, faster, and focused. So applications, the outcome of a meeting, if you can't state that in 2 sentences or less, you don't need a meeting. Think about that. If you can't determine why you are having a meeting in less than 2 sentences, it's probably because things aren't clear. So instead of having a meeting to clear things up, create that clarity first, determine the outcome, and then hold the meeting with the appropriate people that need to be there. I know this is like gonna kind of whump your mind as far as meetings, because for me, I have weekly meetings. I do it with my team, I do it with my sub-teams, and I have weekly check-ins. But there is structure and there is an outcome that is expected out of each one of those meetings. So I'm not saying throw out all your meetings. What I'm asking you is to look at your calendar and determine if that meeting is, 1, meaningful. If it's not, cancel it or shorten it. And then 2, when you have the meeting, make sure that it has an outcome, it has the people in there, and if you need to make a decision, those decision makers are present. So that piece alone is going to help you scale down your meetings. You're going to trim the fat. You're going to streamline, right, the core. Now what I want you to do is we're going to redesign how the team works outside that meeting. Because in the end, fewer meetings means more time outside to work. So they're not working after hours. I mean, there are some days where I find myself in meetings from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I get absolutely nothing done. So then after 4 p.m., what am I doing? I'm answering emails. I'm doing the things that I needed to do during the day. And now it bleeds into the evening. So everything gets pushed back. Stop it. I had to tell myself, John, this isn't working. Something has to stop. And so I use these techniques to trim the fat, get rid of the meetings I don't need to have, get rid of the meetings that I was invited to that I no longer need to be in. Sometimes we put meetings on the calendar at the beginning of projects, or maybe there was a spike and you needed to be there and then you're just left on the invite list. Is anybody, I guarantee you I'm invited to a dozen meetings just from an awareness standpoint I don't need to be on. Get them off your calendar. Don't even put tentative on there. Delete them. Get them out of there. If somebody needs you, if they need you to make a decision, then it's up to them. You're going to empower them to bring you in that conversation. And that's what really this third topic is. We're going to replace meetings with better systems. Like that's what we're in business to do. We're in business to create a product that we're either selling to a customer, we're either selling to another business, and it's going to bring us revenue so we can grow our teams and we can retain that top talent. Because if your top employees are sitting in meetings all day, who's doing the work? Ask yourself that. That's how important this is. So if you've stuck around to the end, here we go. I want you to use tools for updates. Like think about how we can automate discussion things in the meetings. When I first was a leader, I was a manager, and I used to have these status meetings. Why? Because that's what I did when I was an employee. And then I got to thinking, why are we meeting for an hour and 15 minutes to go over a weekly status of projects? Instead, let's create, at that time it was a spreadsheet. It doesn't need to be like rocket science. You don't have to use a fancy app or pay for something. What I'm saying is use something that is already accessible within your organization or your business and track status of projects. That way, anybody needs a status, including the leader or the boss, they go out to the spreadsheet and there it is. Break it into months, break it into quarters, whatever you want to break it into, and then set the expectation that everybody goes in there and updates that. So here's where the really gold is to that. If you're gone on vacation, sick, guess what? Your backup, your boss, whoever you've left in charge can go in there. They don't need to call you. They don't need to say, hey, John, what's the status of that project? They go in the sheet. They go in the system. It's there. I mean, come on. How can you beat that, right? So what I'm asking is use tools to help automate some of those things that you are having meetings for now. If you are having status meetings just to have status meetings, look at some tools. The other thing, shift to outcome-based leadership. So again, this goes back to taskings, project tracking, like what is the outcome? Do I really need a weekly update just to say no update? Because weekly is the frequency. And I got to make sure that you're doing something that week, right? Well, if it's a no update, but you're still working on the project, I don't need a detailed. I worked for this organization and we had a project code, like a tasking code, because we were tracking our time to the 10th of an hour every 6 minutes. And I'm not lying. Every 6 minutes, we had to track our time. Now think about that. When you have your own tracking code just to figure out what you did that week, and it added up to about 10%. So if you were working 40 hours, which we were working 60-hour work weeks, that's 6 hours that you're spending just figuring out and tracking, providing updates. That's a huge amount of time when you look at the entirety of a month and you bring that into a year. And when you're tracking it to overhead, that's where it starts hitting the bottom dollar. So again, shift to outcome-based. When you hit those milestones, give me an update. When you've gotten to a point that you can provide an update, provide that update. The other piece here, train the team to own decisions. You've heard me talk about this before. Create this decision-making framework where you are only involved in the decisions that you need to make. And I don't know what that looks like for your business or your organization, but for me, anytime there's money involved and it reaches over a certain threshold, I need to be informed. I need to make the decision. If it has to do with a change in a process or a change in a system, I need to be involved in that decision. Outside of really those two big things, empower your team to make those decisions. This goes back to being able to step out of the organization. Because if you can never leave your business or your team because you're the decision maker, you're the sole decision maker, you don't own a business, you own a job. And that's not why I got into business. So empower your team to make the decision. And then when you get back, don't ridicule them for making a decision that you might have not made. Empower them to make the decision and then coach them, educate them. Say, next time, think about this. Think about maybe how that impacts the long term. How that decision you made may have impacted some of the downstream systems or milestones that we're going to have to meet. That way, you're constantly educating. I want to create teams that I have high performers that not only make decisions, but make good decisions. And that's how we do this. So an application here. Remember, my calendar was full of meetings. I created 2 half days that were no meeting blocks. I tried to do a day and it just didn't work for our organization. It may work for your team because I do know that there are some organizations that I've consulted with and I've coached that do no meeting days. And that's fine if you can do that. but I don't know too many organizations that can take off a full day with no meetings, at least one-on-ones or check-ins or stand-ups, right? So I dedicated to 2 half days, and it works. Those blocks are when people get those very focused, high-focused tasks done. And then the rest of the time, it's not that they're in meetings, but those times we know not to bother each other, not to slack each other. That's it. Now, if you need to get a hold of somebody, of course, that's not what I'm talking about. You just don't go radio silence. But the expectation is only if it's important and impacted, then you reach out or you call a meeting during that time. So, it's not just about cutting meetings off our calendar, because that's easy to do. I can open up my calendar and I can start deleting meetings. What I want you to do is identify the meetings that you really need to be on a call in a room for. Then I want you to take the meetings that you've dwindled down and make sure that they're meaningful. Look at the time, look at who's invited, and then last but not least, create that culture. Because when we cut meetings, we allow people to begin to do the things that we hired them to do. And we do that through trust, and we do that through creating ownership. I hope this helps somebody. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click on that subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously, tells the algorithm people want to hear about this. And in the end, I'd be appreciative. Go be great. Talk to everyone later. Bye.